let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development. To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well.
The Source engine, of course,
the
if you
tools
did...
available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
The Source engine was created for Half-Life, and therefore the follow-up Counter-Strike, and multiple versions of the Source engine has come out. Some was used for CS Source, CS 1.6, and of course Half-Life 2, which brought the Source 2 engine. You'll basically recognize the style of these games if you've played a lot of them. Gmod, Garry's Mod, of course, one of the most ubiquitous game on its own, almost a game engine exists. It's also of course made on the Source engine. It's yeah. Can we just walk here? We can. I don't have a jump button. So, through a more realistic house, we entered into this... well, whatever you want to call... okay, I died. Or did I die? Can you die? No, you can't. You just fall. Everything is perfectly fine. I suspect nothing really would happen if we landed on all of these or we didn't. It's just... I mean, this is art, I guess. More so than other games, this is like art pieces. There's even like an visible dome here in the middle of these stairs. We cannot go inside. So we're now back to these, well, not necessarily boxy corridors anymore, but the same grey, you know, industrial area. The Source engine was made for the Half-Life games, and continued to be, you know, for Counter-Strike and so on. It's been used for more bigger and more expansive games like the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, for example, which was one of the very first Source 2 games that came out. It came actually before Half-Life 2, I want to say. I could be wrong on that one, but I remember... no, it was in development before Half-Life 2, and then it came out around that time. I can't remember exactly. But generally, like Davey said, this is what the engine is good at. Trying to make it do other things is a struggle. Which is part of why Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was such a buggy game with lots of issues. Alright, something close behind us. But we really have nowhere to go here. It's just fences. Interesting. It's leading us on a path. And this area, which is so visually similar.
This prison,
yeah.
Funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that.
Yes, please.
This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
Coda seems like a guy... Well, I hate to use the word pretentious, but he seems that way. I genuinely do believe that games are an art form, but they're also entertainment. I guess they don't have to be both or either, but 1 hour of standing still, no one is going to actually sit through that except masochists. Alright, so we're back here again. Can we just continue to go down? The sound design in this one is a little bit almost creepy. Deliberately disturbing, you know? All the sounds and stuff.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time.
Okay. Exact same solution, you say?
There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
We're starting to see some color now, at least. Beyond all the gray. Blue sky. Red and green walls. Music is very overbearing at this point. It's taking like a... It's almost like overpowering. Alright. Audition? Pitch meeting?
Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the buttons on your gamepad to respond.
Huh. There must be an ending. When that's it, they stop. This is new. I wonder how far the dialogue goes with those people. They seem very much like a message rather than
and so we
a
make
conversation.
one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
You can sit in the black space in the middle. Guess that's what I'm doing right now.
It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, And maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Oh, I'm in. I am interested. Nice room. Not. Very clever. We can't actually leave a note.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. All of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually.
So when you're phrased with something in a game, I think it's the natural reaction to try to do that. So, you get the message, game connected to the internet, you can leave notes. So, first note you see, you go like, oh, well, okay, someone's done that. You have no reason at this point to doubt it. But then immediately, I feel like you want to try to leave a message. It's the same in Dark Souls, which, yeah, I've been playing a lot recently. One of the major systems in the game is the whole leaving messages thing. Some of those messages, at least early on, are pre-made by the game. But almost everything afterwards, in fact, maybe all of them after maybe the first area, are player-left messages. You can also rate them for a positive or negative message, but the point is, it's a type of multiplayer that works without being necessarily multiplayer. Shared communication within the game. So, as I see this note here, I immediately go, okay, I want to leave a message. What if one of my friends leave it? But I can. And then the narrator, Davey, says, actually, it's a lie. And I don't know about you, but I felt disappointed immediately by that. First, the immediate disappointment, oh, well, that's a shame. But like immediately afterwards, like, okay. So that means there's clearly gonna be something about the note, so now I'm intrigued. Let's keep going. This is basically the beginner's guide version of Nice View Dark Souls. I might be mentioning that a lot, but that's mainly because I've been thinking and playing about that game a lot before I played this.
Feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
Fine, fun.
But it's ironic, isn't it? That in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
Too many messages in this area. Wrote much wrong. On a personal, like, UI note, I appreciate that they go into becoming a bit shaded when you've read them. Davey said, I don't have to read them all, but I find myself wanting to do that. I think that's part of the completionist thing you have in game. Not everyone has it, but it seems to be pretty common when most people discuss games, you know, that desire to 100% the game, or at least like finish this. So achievements are so popular, you know. You get that mark on your Xbox Live or PlayStation trophy or in Steam that says, ding ding ding, you got a thing, completed all of X. That's satisfying, because there's something satisfying with like fully completing a job. Like that is something that most everyone can recognize, I think. But there has to be value in the individual thing. Like, if you don't enjoy the process of playing the game and finishing things, you eventually don't care. If you play a bad game, doesn't matter that the game says like, hey, finish all the X or whatever. You just go, whatever. So what's the point of all these bubbles, right? Like, obviously the illusion is that people have left these messages, and because of people left messages, you will get messages like but. But there's got to be something more to this rather than look what people would say. Also, why are some... It's not just me, right? Some notes are definitely bluer. No. I am not unique. I can't open the door either. I am compelled to read all these notes. A lot of them are worthless. A lot of them don't really say anything. But I do feel like he's sort of in some ways sort of captured what people would say if this was actually true. Very good game. I assume eventually in the discussion of the beginner's guide we're going to end up reaching the point of saying like, is this a game? Because people have predefined notion of what that game should be. For what it's worth, this game as itself hasn't really pretended to be a game as such, but it very much like explores the idea of games and gaming and game design. So it's unique in that regard. Alright, let's continue reading all these notes. So many of them. Yep. Miscible Wall. Well, I don't see a person. That's something. Art interpretation. It's the cabbage guy again. I feel like he said something before. Stop pretending you are other people. Well, I mean, valid opinion. Do you think this sort of experiment, like Devil Tower Star, it said that over there as well. Putting yourself into pretending to be thousands of people. It's interesting, I guess. Sort of, kind of strawmanning your audience a little bit, right? Not necessarily bad.
At the end of this level, we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one.
Whispers. Remember the first game was Escape from the Whisper Machine? Connection? Maybe not. It's just a cool sounding word. And it seems like an obvious effect to have in something like this.
In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on. And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here. To step back and connect the pieces together. To grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
I mean, yeah, symbolically, I suppose. But it is not a hard puzzle. I think everyone would have solved this within 10 seconds. Because in a game when you don't know what to do, you just start mashing things. And if you suddenly see switches, then yeah. Symbolically, I agree though, like closing the door on a past chapter, but